The hardest part about RETA is not getting access to it. The hard part is everything that happens after you inject it for the very first time. Because after helping thousands of men get lean and cutting down to 5% body fat, including myself, I have to admit, Retatrutide is the closest thing for a cheat code for fat loss that has ever existed or has been tested in clinical human trials. But like any cheat code, if you don't know how to use it, it breaks the game. So in this video, I'm gonna show you guys 7 non-negotiable rules to follow whether you're already taking RETA or you plan to jump on it. And these same rules are the difference between a cycle that leaves you skinny fat, hormonally erect, or right back where you started. Or maybe you had the most dramatic physical transformation of your life, but it actually holds for many years to come. Now, in case you don't know me, my name is Nick Trigilli. I'm a former IFBB pro bodybuilder, performance coach to thousands of men just like yourself. Which brings me to rule number 1 if you're taking Retatrutide. You cannot rely on RETA as your only plan to lose body fat. The reason the men rush on the Retatrutide is the same reason they fail on it. They think the hard work is finally over. And it kind of makes sense. The clinical data is insane. 24% of reduction in body weight for individuals with obesity in 48 weeks. If you already tried it, you know how fast the appetite disappears, how fast the scale moves, and everything feels like it's working. But here's the problem. RETA is a triple agonist. It hits the GLP-1, the GIP, the glucagon receptors simultaneously. What that mechanism actually does is it suppresses appetite, improves insulin sensitivity, and accelerates fat mobilization. But it does not build muscle, it does not protect muscle, and it does not teach your body how to maintain the weight once the drug is gone. Think of RETA as a scalpel tool, and you're the surgeon. The scalpel doesn't decide what gets cut and what gets preserved. You do. And if you hand a scalpel to someone with no protocol, no training structure, and no hormonal foundation, they're gonna cut out the wrong things. I've seen it happen dozens of times. Guys lose 30, 40 pounds on RETA, but 15 of those pounds was muscle. Their testosterone was tanked, their metabolism slower than when they started. And the moment they come off of it, the weight comes right back. Every single pound, sometimes even more. And the men who come out of RETA cycle looking the best, they're lean, they're muscular, they're holding their results 12 months later. Not the men who just injected and ate less. They're the men who treated RETA as a one weapon inside their complete system. So if you're watching this and you feel unsure about your protocol and want a full system built for your body to take your physique to the next level, check the first link in the description and see how we can help you through our high performance coaching and concierge membership and schedule a call with our team. So before anything else in this video, I need you to lock this in. RETA is not your plan. RETA is an accelerant you pour on top of a plan that already exists. Which brings me directly to the hormonal foundation that the plan has to be built on first. Rule number 2. Testosterone must be optimized. You must be on TRT or have optimized testosterone before or during RETA. Here's something that no one talks about in the GLP-1 space that's really saying it out loud enough. The drug that's suppressing your appetite hard enough to put you in a 1,000 calorie deficit every single day needs an equally powerful anabolic signal running alongside of it. Without optimized testosterone, RETA doesn't burn just fat, it burns everything. Which is why most of my clients, they're gonna run Retatrutide, they're running TRT as their base. Now, if you're at a 1,000 calorie deficit while you have low testosterone, what do you think's gonna happen? Your body needs an anabolic signal to preserve lean tissue during aggressive fat loss. Testosterone is that signal. It tells your body to hold on to muscle and burn the fat. Without it, your body has no reason to make that distinction. It will break down whatever is the most metabolically expensive to maintain. So what you end up with is a man losing 30 pounds on RETA, and 12 at least of those pounds was the muscle he spent years building. And the scale looks great, but your body composition, it's gonna tell a different story, man. And I've seen this happen with my own clients. Men who came to me after running RETA through another clinic, and their total testosterone was 280, 300 nanograms per deciliter, and they're wondering why they look smaller and softer after losing 25 pounds than they did before they started it. Now, before I go any further, nothing here is medical advice. Always work with a qualified physician before starting any hormone protocol. And what I'm sharing today is educational. It's built from over 2 decades of real-world experience coaching men through exactly this. With that said, here's the standard I typically work with. Total testosterone needs and must be optimized, not just in range, optimized. There's a massive difference between 400 nanograms per deciliter and 900 grams per deciliter, and both can show up as normal on your standard lab report. Now, free testosterone matters just as much because if your SHBG is high, even good total testosterone numbers can leave you really functionally low. And if you're already on TRT, well, RETA could be layered on top of that existing optimized protocol. Now, if you're not on TRT, well, if your free testosterone is still suboptimal, that needs to be addressed first, or get optimized simultaneously. Because the goal is not just to lose scale weight. The goal is to come out the other side of the cycle leaner, more muscular, and metabolically stronger than when you started. And that outcome is physiologically impossible in an environment with low testosterone, no matter how good the drug is. But RETA will do its own job. Your testosterone determines what it has to work with, which leads directly into what needs to happen before any of this begins. So rule number 3, you need blood work and a titration strategy before you start. Most men start RETA the same way they start everything else. They get access, they read a few forum posts, they pick a starting dose that sounds reasonable, and they inject it. Without any baseline labs, they have no titration plan or understanding what their hormones are, their cardiovascular markers are, or their metabolic baseline actually looks like before the drug goes in. So let me tell you right now, blood work and proper titration matters more than any other peptide or GLP-1 because it is not semaglutide, it is not Tirzepatide. It's a triple 3 agonist hitting 3 receptor pathways simultaneously. And that third receptor, Mr. Glucagon, is what separates it from everything else. Because glucagon activation increases energy expenditure, it drives fat oxidation, and it raises your resting heart rate, all at the same damn time. Which means before you inject a single dose, you need to know exactly where your cardiovascular baseline sits. Because let's say if your resting heart rate is already elevated and your blood pressure is already high and your liver enzymes are already whacked out, RETA is gonna amplify every single one of those problems before it fixes anything. The clinical trial data shows that RETA drives a dose-dependent increase in resting heart rate peaking at 6 to 7 beats per minute above baseline at the highest doses. Now for a healthy man with a solid cardiovascular foundation, it's pretty manageable. Now, for a man who walked in already compromised, never checked it, that's a problem that builds silently for weeks before it presents itself. Now, the blood work panel I want to place in before any client starts with RETA covers these bases. Complete hormone panel has total testosterone, free testosterone, estradiol, SHBG, LH, FSH. Your metabolic panel is going to have fasting glucose, insulin, A1C, liver enzymes, ALT, AST. You're going to have your cardiovascular markers, lipids, CRP, resting heart rate, and blood pressure. Now, this panel is going to do 2 things for you. It's going to tell you whether or not your body is actually ready to run RETA safely, and it gives you a reference point so when that something shifts mid-cycle, you know. Now, the second half of this rule is equally as important, so listen, the titration strategy. Now, this is where most men make the most costly mistakes of the entire cycle. They start too high and they escalate too fast, and both produce the same outcome. They have severe GI side effects. They're under eating because the nausea makes food unbearable. And basically, the first month experience is so miserable, they either quit entirely or push through at the cost of losing significant amounts of muscle from being unable to hit their protein targets. Now, the phase 2 trial data is clear on this. GI side effect rates nearly doubled in participants who started at 8 milligrams compared to participants that started at 1 milligram and titrated up. The principle I work by is very simple. You start lower. It's called the least effective dose. Then, when you need to, you increase very slowly. Your body needs time to adapt to the 3 receptor pathways being activated simultaneously. If you give it that time though, the side effects are going to stay manageable and the appetite suppression remains consistent and the fat loss is very steady and consistent. Now, for most people who are totally new to GLP-1s, 0.5 milligram is recommended for most. And I personally used RETA up to 6 milligrams per week. And this is where most guys see the best fat loss with a proper titration strategy. But basically 3 to 4 milligrams per week is the sweet spot. So get the blood work done, you're gonna build the titration plan, and then you can get started. Because every problem we're about to cover in the remaining rules is significantly easier to manage when you know exactly what your body was doing before RETA entered the picture. Rule number 4, retatrutide and Tirzepatide are not the same drug, so stop dosing them like they are. This is the mistake I see most often from men who've already tried a GLP-1 before. They've done a cycle or 2 of Tirzepatide, they got decent results, they understand how it feels, so when they get on RETA, they treat it like a stronger version of the same thing. Same dosing logic, same escalation timeline, same expectations, and they wonder why the side effects hit harder, and why the results plateau earlier, or why their body's responding in ways that tirzepatide never produced. Tirzepatide is only a dual agonist. 2. GLP-1 and GIP are primarily about appetite and your insulin levels. They're gonna slow gastric emptying, they're gonna reduce the hunger signals, right, from the brain, and prove how your body processes nutrients. The glucagon is a catabolic hormone. Its primary job is energy mobilization. It signals your liver to break down the stored glycogen and directly stimulates fat oxidation at the cellular level, and increases your resting metabolic rate by driving something called thermogenesis. This is why RETA produces fat loss results that tirzepatide simply cannot match at equivalent doses. When you escalate RETA the way that most men escalate tirzepatide, jumping doses every 2 weeks, chasing faster appetite suppression, you're not just hitting one receptor system harder, you're driving the glucagon activation up at the same damn time. So your resting heart rate's gonna climb up, your energy expenditure increases before your nutrition's dialed in to support that. And the GI burden compounds across 3 pathways instead of 2. And most men get the best body composition results on RETA almost never on the highest dose. In phase 2 trials, 8 milligrams of RETA produced results nearly identical to 12 milligrams with significantly fewer side effects. The sweet spot for most men I work with is between 3 and 6 milligrams per week. It's titrated deliberately over 8 to 12 weeks to get there. Now, at that range, the glucagon activation is meaningful enough to drive that serious fat oxidation without overwhelming your cardiovascular health or making your GI tract fight you every single week. So if you've been on tirzepatide before, I need you to reset your mental model completely before you transition into this medication. Treat it like the new medication it is, and build your protocol around what RETA actually does, not what a dual agonist taught you to expect. And even with the right dosing, this is where most men who are running the right dose still sabotage themselves. And it happens 3 times a day at every single meal. Rule number 5, your nutrition has to be engineered around your medication. This is the simplest rule in this entire video today. And it is a single daily discipline that separates the men who come out of a RETA cycle with their muscle intact and the results permanent from the men who don't. And here's what most men completely wrong about eating on RETA. They let the medication dictate their nutrition because RETA suppresses hunger so completely that most men on active cycle are eating 700, 800, sometimes 1,000 calories a day, less without even realizing it. That level of deficit feels effortless because the appetite signal is poof, gone. But your body doesn't care that you're not hungry. It still needs fuel to preserve that muscle, support your hormone function, maintain bone density, and keep your metabolism from crashing. So when that fuel is not coming in consistently, your body does not wait around. It starts breaking down your lean tissue for energy, but it does it very quietly over weeks in a way that doesn't show up on the scale until you come off the medication and realize the weight that you lost wasn't the weight you wanted to lose. So here's how nutrition needs to be structured on a RETA cycle. Protein first, it's non-negotiable. The target I work with is a minimum of 1 gram per pound of lean body mass daily, not total weight. And for most men running this protocol, that lands between 150 to 220 grams per day. So every meal starts with a bite of your protein source. Chicken, beef, eggs. I'm not a fan of dairy, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. The nutrients are just not good enough. Now, before anything else touches your plate, those 4 to 6 bites before the satiation signal fires are the most important bites of your day because calories need a floor, not just a ceiling. And most men use RETA as an excuse to eat as little as possible. Now, I don't want my clients, for men at least, eating below 1,500 to 1,800 calories a day, regardless of how suppressed their appetite is. And I want to preface, I do have clients probably in my program now eating less than that, but it's going to vary. Just want to give you guys a range. Now, below that floor, more than likely you're not going to be optimized in a fat loss deficit. You're in starvation response. That down-regulates your thyroid metabolism, it elevates cortisol, it accelerates your muscle breakdown, and sets you up for the exact rebound you're trying to avoid. Now, carbohydrates. Time them around your training sessions. Pre and post workouts when your insulin sensitivity is at the highest and your muscles are primed to use that glucose for performance and recovery rather than stored as body fat. Now, those same carbohydrates that work against you when eating randomly become an anabolic asset when they're timed properly. And do not rely on hunger to remind you to eat. RETA will suppress that signal so completely that your entire days can pass by where you generally forget that food exists. So schedule Schedule your meals the same way you schedule your injections. I know how you guys love your injections. Set alarms if you need to, because on this medication, eating is no longer instinctive. It is a deliberate act that you have to execute whether you feel like it or not. Now that your nutrition is structured around protecting your body, your building, the next rule is about protecting something that most men on RETA are ignoring completely until it becomes a real problem. So we're at rule number 6. Your heart rate is going to go up on RETA, and most men are completely ignoring it. Now, most men starting on RETA cycle are tracking one number, the scale. That's it. They do weekly check-ins, maybe progress photos. As long as that number is dropping, everything feels like it's working. Meanwhile, their resting heart rate has climbed 8-10 beats per minute, and their HRV has dropped. Their blood pressure is slowly creeping up, and they have no idea because, well, no one told them to look at it. That glucagon, which makes RETA more powerful than any other dual agonist, is the same receptor increasing your resting metabolic rate and drives thermogenesis. So both of those mechanisms place a direct and measurable demand on your cardiovascular health. Now, clinical trial data from the phase 2 study shows that RETA produces dose-dependent increase in resting heart rate, peaking at 6 to 7 beats per minute above baseline at the 12 milligram dose. That peak typically hits around week 20 to 24, and then it gradually declines. Now, 6 to 7 beats per minute might sound insignificant, but considering what's happening in the broader context of a RETA cycle, you're in a significant calorie deficit, and your body's under metabolic stress. Your cortisol is elevated from the dietary restriction. Your sleep is probably going to be disrupted. And now on top of all that, your cardiovascular system is running at a higher baseline. And every single hour of every single day, it's under stress. Now, for a man who walked in with a solid cardiovascular foundation, that's manageable. For a man who's already been dealing with elevated blood pressure and poor sleep and high stress and high stimulant use or subclinical cardiovascular risk factors, he never had it checked. And that's a compounding problem that builds silently over months before it presents itself. Now, here's the part that makes this very dangerous. Most men that are self-managing themselves on a RETA cycle have no idea their cardiac baseline has shifted at all. They feel fine, and they attribute the slightly elevated resting heart rate to the diet or the training or just being tired. And this is exactly why rule number 3 requires baseline blood work and getting your cardiovascular markers checked before you take that first injection. Because without a baseline, you have no reference point. You don't know if your resting heart rate's at week 16 is normal for you or 10 beats above where you started. You don't know if your blood pressure is trending upwards on a RETA response or a pre-existing condition that the drug is, possibly amplifying. The way I monitor the protocol with every client on RETA is very straightforward. Resting heart rate is tracked every morning before you get to bed. Use a Whoop, Oura Ring, Apple Watch. It gives you this data pretty much passively every day. What matters is the trend over time. If your resting heart rate climbs more than 8 to 10 beats above your pre-cycle baseline, then you need to start paying attention. Make sure you check your blood pressure weekly. And remember, when you get your blood pressure checked, first thing in the morning, as soon as you get out of bed. Don't be taking it midday, after a workout, after you drink coffee, after you hydrate, after you ate something. Fasted in the morning is the only time. And make sure this is a weekly habit, and make sure you're tracking HRV as well. Heart rate variability is one of the most sensitive early warning signs of cardiovascular and nervous system stress. Now, a sustained downward trend in HRV mid-cycle tells you your body's under more systemic load than it can recover from before any other symptom is going to appear. And if you're a man over 40 with a family history of cardiovascular disease or a history of any hypertension or any pre-existing metabolic conditions, this monitoring of this is not optional, man. It is the minimum standard of care for running a medication with documented cardiovascular side effects. RETA is extraordinary, but extraordinary tools require extraordinary attention to what's happening underneath the hood. Track the number that actually tells you what your body's doing, not just the one on your scale. And now we get to the rule that determines whether everything you just built over the next 16, 20, sometimes 24 weeks of this cycle actually stays with you permanently, or does it disappear within 6 months of your last injection? So rule number 7, you need an exit protocol plan before you start. Yeah, because most men treat the exit as an afterthought. They hit their goal weight, the cycle is done, they stop injecting, they go back to eating normally. Or they just stay on because they're too scared of losing their progress. And then 60, 90, 120 days later, they're standing on a scale watching every single pound creep back on. It's even proven in this BMJ study that men and women stopping GLP-1 medications regain an average of 0.4 kilograms per month after stopping, with full pre-treatment weight projected to return within 1.7 years. Even losing all of the cardiometabolic markers like cholesterol, blood pressure, insulin, they're projected to return to their baseline within 1.4 years. The moment that medication clears your system, your blood levels drop within the first 2 weeks of stopping, the appetite regulation disappears, disappears almost overnight. What comes back in its place is not your normal appetite now. It's this rebound hunger response that's significantly more aggressive than you ever experienced before you ever started this. So here is how a proper exit protocol is structured. First, you do not stop RETA abruptly. You taper it. Over the final 4 to 6 weeks of your cycle, you begin stepping down the dose deliberately. Half your working dose for the first 2 weeks. I would go down 25% more or so for the next 2. This gradual reduction allows your natural appetite regulation system to come back online slowly, rather than being thrown into cold water overnight, like a cold plunge. Second, your calories come up before your last injection. Most men wait until the drug is actually out of their system and to increase their food intake. That's very, very backwards. In the final 4 weeks or so of the cycle, you've been slowly, and I mean slowly, introducing calories towards your maintenance target. That number that your body needs to sustain your new body composition without getting fatter. Now, by the time the medication is fully cleared out of your metabolism, it's already running at its maintenance. Rather than scrambling to find equilibrium, it's never been shown. And third, the habits you built during the cycle have to survive during the exit. Now, this is ultimately what determines your results are permanent or temporary. RETA gave you a window, and that window is where appetite was managed, the food choices were easier, and your body was primed for change. Now, the men who use that window to build real nutritional discipline and real training consistency and a real understanding of what their body needs, most of those men keep their results. And for the most part, most of our clients do. And this is where the majority of them transition to their gaining phase, where we keep body fat levels at a sustainable level and start adding some lean muscle mass. So there you have it, the 7 non-negotiable rules for anyone looking to start RETA or any GLP-1 medication that matter. Now, the men who follow these 7 rules come out of a RETA cycle leaner, more muscular, optimized hormonally, and holding the results 12 months later. Now, if you're a man in your 30s, 40s, 50s, or older, you want to implement a lean body recomposition system right away with proper blood work monitoring, personalized biohacking protocols, and medical oversight through your entire process, so you're not guessing at any point, click the first link in the description and book a call with my team. We work with only high-performing men who are serious about transforming their body compositions and taking it to the next level. Now, if you found this video valuable, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and tell me where you're at right now. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.